Hello and welcome to the Ashton College Alumni Interview Series. Today we're talking with Michael, who has completed a Red Seal Cook exam prep course. Hello, Michael. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Awesome. So our first question, can you tell us a little about your career experience and how you ended up at Ashton College?
Well, I came to cooking very late. I had a long career in other fields, and I had retired and moved to Montreal and was bored. And people said, you like food, you should take cooking classes. And I thought about going to like the wide, but then I ended up in culinary school in my 50s. I went back to culinary school in my 50s, and so I was working. Then I finished culinary school. I was working in Montreal in some fine dining restaurants, Maison Belude, Daniel Belude's restaurant, and some other, high-end restaurants. And it was great. I enjoyed it, but I knew that, I was not going to spend it at my point in my life. I was not going to spend, 20 years, battling my way up the culinary ladder. And I didn't really have the ambition to have a big, fine dining restaurant or anything. And then a friend of mine was working in Iqaluit, Nunavut. And she said, we always need people in the kitchen here, kitchen staffs. And so I came here, I came up here to work in the kitchen just for the adventure, to see what the Arctic was like. And I was going to be for like 6 months. And I've been here for like 5 years. So while I was here, so I've been up here and been working up here. And, I qualified for a Red Seal, and I wanted to take the Red Seal exam. And so when I signed up to take the Red Seal exam, the GN, the government of Nunavut's apprenticeship program, asked me if I would be part of this pilot program for them for the Red Seal program. And so they are sponsoring me. They've been very generous. They pay for the course. They provided me a laptop, the whole deal. And then, so now I'm waiting to finally take the Red Seal exam.
Wow.
So
that's so cool. So the second question, so I guess since this was something you went into after retire, you didn't always know you wanted to work in the restaurant industry.
No, not at all. Funny, I had an unusual, before this, I was a professional opera singer. So I had a long career as an opera singer. And what I used to do is wherever I was living and performing, my thing was kind of to go check out the food scene, go to the fancy restaurants. So that was kind of my thing for fun. And I became friends with some chefs, some chefs that have gone on to become celebrity chefs. I knew them when they were like starting out. And so I was more interested in eating than cooking. And so but then when I went to culinary, and when I went to culinary school, I wasn't sure if I was going to really work in the field. But then when I got in the field, what I liked about the cooking was it was very similar to live performing in opera. It's kind of like an extreme sport type thing. There's the adrenaline of it, and there's the, you need to really, and you really, and in the moment, whatever you decide as the cook, in the moment, that's what gets, that's what happens. If I decide, which pan to use, how long to leave it in the pan, what temperature, how much, there are recipes to follow and everything, but when you're cooking on the line. And so I find that very exhilarating, just like I did when I was performing, at the moment, whatever I decided to interpret the music, that's what the people got. And so it's sort of the same thrill for me in cooking, so
wow.
Whatever is what we serve to the people, and hopefully they like it. I don't go crazy, but I want to give them a good meal.
That is so cool. So you basically answer the next question of what do you love about cooking and what excites you about the field. Yeah,
that excites me. But one of the other things that excites me up here and why it's kind of kept me in Iqaluit is, so I started out in fine dining, working in fine, but when I came up to Iqaluit, I kind of landed in working for nonprofits. I started cooking at the soup kitchen, for example, and then did some things there, and then at the men's shelter, and now I actually work at a daycare of all places. And the
Wow.
thing is that we the whole point of them is to, to serve healthy food and fresh food, and to people who otherwise wouldn't get it. So that has what's really kind of excited me more than anything else about the field. It almost feels like a calling sometime. So
It sounds
I
very
would see people.
fulfilling. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's one of the reasons that I, have stayed up here and that I find exciting about the field.
That's awesome. So to go talk a little bit about Ashton College, did you have a favorite instructor, or I think you only had one instructor?
I only had one instructor, Chef Willie, and I thought he was excellent. I really was. He really. I learned a lot from him. That I either missed. When I was in culinary school, and and he was obviously experienced in how to do the online thing, and so and I learned a lot from him. I really thought he was excellent. So really one of the best instructors I had. Really.
Wow, that's awesome. Did you have any memorable learning experiences, or was there a way that he taught that was just like, wow?
Well, he was very, very prepared, which I really appreciated, because, we're at a time now where all of us are already working, and, so to be able to go to the class and be really prepared. And but what I also appreciated is, even though I didn't go to culinary school that long ago, only like, 5 or 6 years ago, he was pretty up to date. I mean, he was up to date with the latest things, and I don't think some people realize that, culinary field there's so many changes in the past few years. And when I went to culinary school, my professors, my instructors were excellent, but they'd been, they were doing stuff from like 20 years ago and 30 years ago, And if you said something like, well, what about sous vide, or what about some of these other things? Be like, what? That crazy stuff, it's a fad. No one's ever gonna, But so Chef Foley, he knew about those things, was able to give some really, interesting insight, and he had experience, so that was very helpful.
So, were there any highlights of your time in the course?
Well, I mean, highlights. It's kind of dry stuff, you know what I mean? So it's a lot of technical stuff, and so. But it was good. I think what was good for me was the refresher of it all. I was like, oh yeah, and things that and when you get, so you use certain things, you do certain things a certain way, and you kind of stuff that falls by the wayside. So then to be reminded and reintroduced to things was really, and it's interesting because I run my own kitchen, and so I was able to reincorporate some things, or incorporate things that I hadn't, because I was like, oh yeah, I remember. Well, it's going to sound crazy. I remember we were learning about the different grades of meat and proteins, and how to recognize things. And then the next day I went to the local grocery up here, and we only have one that has a meat market in it. It's not like down in the South. We only have one. And I was looking through all the meat, and I was like thinking, oh my gosh, this is like not very high grade. So I was like, oh no, it's not good grade meat. And I'm like, oh, but it's the North, it's very expensive. And I'm like, I'm paying like money for low grade meat. So I mean, I don't know if that's a highlight, but it was one of these things where I was like, oh my gosh, the course made me realize this. So now I'm ordering meat from the South, from butchers in the South, because it's better quality. So, but that's directly from my time in the course.
Was there anything that challenged you?
Well, it's tough. It's a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. I know that it can't, it's kind of like you have to really cover a lot of stuff for the Red Seal course, and so that was the most challenging.
Was there anything that surprised you about the learning experience? And was it your first time doing online learning like that?
It was my first time, and it was much better than I thought. I must admit, it was much better. It was, for me, I'm in the East Coast, so it was like 9 o'clock at night. And I'm up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and in the kitchen at 6. So it was made for a long day, and I was worried that it was going to be hard for me to focus, but it really wasn't. And and I think a lot of that had to do with the instructor being very well organized. But it was. And actually, I really was invigorated by it all, and I was surprised at how easy it was to learn online. So I'm a big believer in it. I mean, I think especially in the North where we're so isolated,
Mm-hmm.
and I really believe, and I think that's why the government of Nunavut wanted me to take this course, to see if it's a way that because that they can get people trained up here in the Arctic, because otherwise, people have to fly to the south, and it's very expensive, and and it's really tough for people to be so far from their families sometimes, I think. So anyway, but the online aspect of it, I was very surprised that it was, I thought it was very good, thorough. I learned a lot.
That's awesome. It sounds like you wouldn't mind doing more online learning.
Not at all. I mean, I would love to take more advanced courses and in-depth courses. I'm being isolated up here in the North. It's not so easy. When I lived in Montreal, if I wanted to get a little better at something, I could just go and work at another restaurant, even part-time, like if I wanted to get, pump up this area that I felt I was weak in. But up here in the North, I can't. There's just not there are not chefs for me to go and apprentice with, really. I mean, if I get the Red Seal, I'll be like the chef people apprentice with. That's the scary thing. And I would, and I know that there's always areas that I'd like to build up and strengthen, and so the only way to do it and still be in the North will be through stuff like this. So I hope it works, and I hope it keeps going.
That you focus in for cooking? Or a style that you really enjoy cooking in?
Not really. My first jobs, my training is, French classical technique, and my first jobs were at a French classical restaurant. And so that kind of stuff kind of forms a foundation that sticks with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I'm up here working, and I'm making, local dishes like, seal stew and caribou stew and things like that. And the local people have a way of that they've made it, for since way back.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I make it, I change it to use classic French techniques and things like that. And it usually elevates it. I made some caribou stew recently, and everybody's like, "Wow, what is this?" I mean, you're not even into it. How do you mix? And I've said, I just used classical French techniques, because that's how I was trained. But it was pretty rustic food. It was caribou stew, So and for my own fun, sometimes I make fancy meals, just for me or one or two friends, just because I don't get to do too much of it up here.
So how has your career progressed, or what is your ultimate goal with the restaurant business?
Well, I've been lucky enough to be able to work in areas of the field where it satisfies me, where it's satisfying, like I was saying earlier, that I'm cooking for people, that it's healthy food and stuff. I mean, at this point in my life, this age of my life, I'm pretty old. You'd be shocked how old I am, because I got a late start. I don't really have the ambition or the drive, the real urge to open my own restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to make good food, and I like to, and I like to try and address issues that are big up here in the North, food insecurity, things like that. And and try to figure out ways to make healthy foods and healthy alternatives when it's very hard to get products and things up there. It's very expensive. nothing can be afforded to be wasted, so I like that. And, I got this job where I am now, really because that's what they wanted. They made a commitment to this daycare. It's the largest daycare in Nunavut, and it's bilingual and all that kind of, and they decided they want to make a big commitment to healthy food, no chemicals if possible, no prefab food, and there are kids with allergies and food intolerances and all that kind of stuff. So they decided to make a commitment to hiring a chef, a cook who they can do that with, instead of someone who just, puts out crackers and cheese and all that kind of stuff. So I find that very stimulating. While I've been there, I've done I've come up with some recipes, for them, for gluten-free things and stuff, and high volume type recipes, because, I cook for, I cook for 35 to 65 kids at a time, I'm doing something that I don't know anyone else is really doing in the field, and I don't know if there's a call for it, except, I know up here there's a million daycares and they all need people to help serve food for kids. So I don't know.
Everyone needs healthy, fresh food. Lots of people still struggle with knowing how to cook fresh food.
Yeah, and I think I feel good about, giving these young kids a foundation in good, healthy food, and, so, that's rewarding for me at this point in what I'm doing.
So did the program help to improve your confidence in the workforce or in the kitchen, do you think?
Yes, it reminded me of certain, techniques and ways of doing things that I'd kind of, got slacked off with and gotten a little bit, and it helped me learn some, what I got a lot from Chef Foley, which I didn't really get so much from other chefs, even in culinary school, was, how certain things interact together and how things work together, and, what spices and things like that, and so that was helpful. And I've already, I already used some of that in my own menu and my own recipe creation. So that's been good.
Awesome. So do you feel more prepared for the Red Seal exam?
Definitely. I feel much more prepared. As a matter of fact, I wish that I could be more prepared. You know what I mean? I think, I'm a little, it's one of these things where when you take the course, you think, you realize, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff on it. There's a lot of stuff on it. And, once you get into the field, it's easy to get into one part of it. You only cook Italian food, or you only cook Chinese food, or you only cook in a cafeteria, and you never bake or anything like that. So these areas, you think, oh my gosh, I forgot this, or I'm out of step with that. And so I'm like, wow, I gotta study, and I gotta reintroduce myself to this and that. So, I feel more prepared. I'm definitely more prepared, but I'm also like, wow, I gotta do lots more, so that's, the course is only like 8 weeks, unfortunately, but I mean, I wish it was like twice as long, but it can't be, but
do you know when you're going to take the exam? Like, that's in the near future?
Yeah, well, the exam has been scheduled and postponed 3 times because, like right now in Iqaluit, we're in a state of emergency because of COVID. So everything is closed. So my exam was scheduled, and then we had a COVID outbreak, and everything has been shut down. So I've rarely left my apartment in a month. So, and and it's literally not just it's literally not just like stay home. It's like it's a official state of emergency in Iqaluit, in where it is. And not have a chance to take this exam for a month or so, who knows. So I better get back to studying. So I'm ready for it. Yeah.
What advice would you offer to someone who is considering taking the prep course?
Well, definitely take it, and and cut out, make some time for it, the first, at the beginning of the course, the first week or two, you're working full time and you just show up for the thing, and then, but there were quizzes and other things that had helped, and then so then I went in to try and do them, and I think, wow, they're very, very helpful. But I've fallen behind. You fall behind because you didn't do it, and so then I made the time and I caught up, and then I put the time in outside of the lecture. Not a lot. I mean, a couple hours. Here or there, and it really, really helped make the course, more important. More valuable. So I mean, I don't know how the others felt, but it's sometimes you can take a prep course like that and you think, you just got to sit there and let the person prepare you, and just take it all in. But if you just put a little more, just put some time into it, and I think you'll get more out of it.
So just a fun little question at the end is, what's your favorite thing to cook? And do you have a favorite celebrity chef? Or you said you met some early in their career, so do you have any fun stories?
Well, being in Iqaluit, I've actually been on 2 cooking shows, and celebrity chefs have come up here and cooked in my kitchen, and I've worked with them. So I've met quite a few. There was an episode of Moose Meat and Marmalade. I don't know if you know this show that's on APTN, and they did an episode here, and they cooked in our kitchen, and I was on it as a person that they fed in discussion, and then there's an episode of Chuck and the First People's Kitchen. I don't know if you know that, but it's a show by Chef Chuck Hughes, and he has a show where he goes to First Nations and Inuit communities and cooks. And so he came and he cooked in our soup kitchen, in the food kitchen, and so I'm on that episode with him, and we've become friends. I've eaten with in his restaurant in Montreal, and been in contact with him, and I have a few others, not to name drop or anything, but I mean, people who I used to live down the street in New York City from Marcus Samuelson, and
Wow.
and all that kind of stuff, and we did some things together. But but when it comes to favorites, I don't know if I have a favorite chef, but I've become, I love to watch. I love to watch Beat Bobby Flay, this show on the Food Network. So I've become a Bobby Flay fan. I don't know. I mean, I've always loved his cooking, but it's.
That was my last question.
Oh,
actually.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have any final words you want to share, please do. If not, you have been amazing, so it's up to you.
Oh no, I mean, I don't know what else. Just I want to thank Ashton for having the course. I mean, especially for those of us in the isolated North, it's going to really be valuable and really important. And I hope that it's going to be available for many more, and even for people who are not so experienced. I run into kids all the time here who want to go to culinary school, or want to learn to cook, but it's daunting for them to leave a small community of 600 people, 1,000 people, 5,000 people, and then have to go to Toronto or Vancouver or something. It's daunting, and and even an introductory type course like this could really be valuable for people and kids in the trades in the Arctic.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me.